It is the Anfield Wrap on Christmas Eve of all things. I've got John Gibbons, I've got Rob Gutmann, I've got Ian Ryan. We are brought to you in association with Green King. This is most definitely the season for festive football. It couldn't be more at this point. So the best way to watch it is at your local Green King Sports Pub. Christmas to catch up with everyone in any way that you want to. There's pints, there's food, and there will be every match on there as well from TNT Sky and Amazon. Wall-to-wall action on the HD screens there. Get yourself down. We had a very nice time at the Arcles last Monday with John Barnes. Watch every winning goal and every big moment. I cannot guarantee John Barnes in every Green King pub. If you download the app, you'll receive 10% off the drinks every single time. The sport on the telly, which if we think about the breadth of the darts, is very much worth considering.
It's more of a constant discount at the moment. It's just a different price. It's less of a discount.
Unless they switch the darts over and put like Neighbours on. I don't know. I think you can watch Neighbours anymore. I don't know. I'm old. I certainly felt old after Liverpool won, Arsenal won. A number of people I spoke to, John, in the media aftermath of the game went, I feel like I've played. Now, I want to be crystal clear, the players will have felt very differently because the players did actually play and they had to work ever so hard. This morning, though, it does indeed feel a little bit like two dropped in the wider context, given the way the game goes, than maybe it did last night.
Yeah, it does a little bit. It's the back-to-back home games, isn't it? And the concern is that we'll look back in May and maybe look at this week and think, is that where they dropped the points that could have been crucial? Listen, maybe not. Maybe we won't even be close, or maybe we'll win it anyway. Let's hope it's the latter. But it reminds me a little bit of 13-14 when there's two away games over Christmas and they lose them both. And listen, the tough games, just like Arsenal at home is tough. They go to Chelsea and City and lose them both, and they get a bit of an offside diddle in one of them. I remember Sterling one. And they play all right. They do okay. Lose both the games. Is it one or draw? No,
they lose them both.
Lose them both. Yeah, and then in the summer, everyone obviously reflects on what sort of happened at the end, but. I did always sort of look at those two games and thinking, if they could have just got like one win from those, then it might have sort of made all the difference. Well, it would have made all the difference. And my concern is that we'll maybe look back on this week. Not that they particularly played badly in either game, really. Certainly not yesterday, but that we might just go, if we would have won one of them or 6 points from there, and would have been. But we'll see. We'll see. It might be a good point.
In the way the game plays out, Ian, that's the next phase for me where it does feel a little bit like, two dropped. It's not to talk anyone down, including our opponents, but they were by far the likelier side to score from pretty much the moment of the equaliser until the moment of the Trent Alexander-Arnold miss. There was only one team that was going to get a goal, especially from open play. There was only one team you felt was going to get a goal in that period. And that makes me feel as though they should get a result. I mean, they should get a result in that context.
Yeah, and when you're at home as well, and with our record at home, you kind of... Maybe you do go into these big games expecting sometimes to get a result when actually in the cold light today and you think about it, you are coming up against a very good team. And I walked off the ground yesterday and I was hugely frustrated. It felt massively like two dropped. It still does to a large extent, although I feel far more content with what I saw the next morning. I think this is all in the context of we should have beat Manchester United because it's the worst United team I've seen since probably 89-90. When they were really poor and they finished bottom half. They're that bad. And I think it's one of them where, as the weeks go on, it'll look even worse. And I know they come and do different things than maybe they did at West Ham and they played slightly differently and they dug in. I get all that. But that's what sticks in the throat a little bit. You can live with a draw against Arsenal because they had a very, very good side, as are we. We're on a slightly maybe earlier path than them, and I think you see that. And I think you've seen it in some performances where not everyone is able to turn up every week and deliver their best performance. And I know that's really hard anyway, even when you're a seasoned pro. But I think we have got a number of footballers who are, some of them are quite new and some are developing, some of them are still 22, 23, and therefore you're going to get inconsistency in certain games, in certain moments. And I think some of that plays out yesterday. But there's no doubt, Liverpool were worthy of the points. They probably could win it. They should win it with the Trent chance. But on overall play, I think you couldn't really argue too much with a draw.
This is the funny thing, Rob, is I think Arsenal start strong and they finish strong, which does sort of skew minds a tiny little bit. And it felt like a little bit of a plan. I think Arsenal backed themselves to be able to finish strongly, and I think they thought if they start fast, they can quieten the crowd, and it goes for them, they get the goal. The thing I would say, is I don't think the 20 after half-time is in anyone's game plan. I don't think Arteta's said, and you know what, lads, for the 20 after half-time, what we'll do is we'll give possession up really cheaply in our final third, and just give them a chance, see what they can do. That so many of theirs, I take Ian's point around our consistency, and I think he might well be referring to one of the substitutes, and we'll come on to that in particular. But they were all at sea for 25 minutes immediately after at the start of the second half. They looked like they couldn't string two passes together playing out, and that's one of the reasons why it's frustrating that we didn't make more of that time.
Yeah, I think Klopp said we shattered them. Arteta described it as being in the washing machine, which I really enjoyed. I think he's referenced washing machines in Anfield before somehow. I can't remember where, but I
very clean.
It's a really good metaphor.
It's a great. I thought we put West Ham in the washing machine for 90 minutes on Wednesday, and I was so heartened by that game because I thought I had to go back. I thought I'm watching Liverpool again. Despite all that we've done this season, against expectation, ahead of the timescale that we expected with the progress of this team in transition, of all the good things that come out of this season, I still hadn't really had a sense that I'd seen Liverpool this season, not a Klopp Liverpool. That team that just murders teams with their intensity and plays very quick one-touch football, quite frankly, and it's in. Sort of a more aggressive version of the great Wenger teams, if you like. We did bring that against Arsenal. I was hoping this is why I was so encouraging against West Ham. We will have that to bring against this Arsenal, and boy, did we need that to come back or arrive as a thing we do in time, and we do it. We do it in that second half period, and we nearly blow them away. And it is just a shame we didn't.
This is my frustration. I take Ian's point, and I take talking Arsenal up, and I'm 100% into they're a really, really good side, and I'm 110% into beat Man United. But one of my things, Rob, is that period is, I just think if we get one, we get two. I think it's the most, if it goes 2-1, it goes 3-1 period of football I've ever seen, and it just doesn't go 2-1. And that's my frustration. My frustration is, I think you can think, well, Arsenal will hang in, they're a good side, they've shown tenacity all season. I just think if Liverpool go ahead in that period, it finishes the matter. And that's what I mean by, that's why it does feel like 2-drop, because that period was such an opportunity to take the points.
Yeah, because say United, if they'd have gone 1-0 against United on 60, it wouldn't necessarily go 2 or 3 because United wouldn't have come out. They'd have still covered up until the last 5 minutes, like a bottom half of the table team would do. Yeah. That Arsenal team would have been stung at 2-1, but would have been stung from a wobbling position, and we like all the boxing metaphors abide. We'd have knocked them down. Can I just say before we sort of get stuck into the meat and drink of the game? I do think we talked about, is it a good point or isn't it a bad point as an overview? I do think it's a good point. I think it would have been a lovely 3 points, but I'm going to stay. I sometimes think, try and remember what you thought before the game, Rob, rather than reinvent your universe afterwards. And I argued with my lads going into the game that a draw here would be good, because we're not playing elite championship winning football at the moment, apart from little pockets like the West Ham game, but we do still find ourselves in a title race. And if we'd lost to Arsenal, which was perfectly possible and certainly looked likely in the first 20 minutes, we'd have finished that. We'd be talking today about being 4 points behind them, and 4 points behind a team that looked better than us, because the narrative of any victory would have been with them. So then we'd have gone, we're not. We'd have been sitting here this morning and we're not in a title race. Whereas we're sitting here today going, we're in a title race. And also, I'm sorry to rant on here, but right, we are definitely not in a 99, 98 point title race here. In a 98, 99, 97 point title race, every point drop, you can go, if Mane's ball hadn't been 2 millimetres there, we'd have won that league in 2019. This isn't going to come down to those fine margins, apart from maybe in the final denouement when there's some big showdown game. Teams are going to drop points all over the show. It's about dropping the right points. These were the right points to drop. We've stayed with them. These were the leagues which are going to be won with 86, 87 points max, I think, are going to be won by the team that keeps its nerve and stays consistent. The more instructive thing of this recent phase is that we beat the 3 bottom half table teams on the bounce: Fulham, Sheffield and Palace. Yes, we should have been United. Those were points dropped. But I'm not quite. It's still Man United at home, and they still low blocked us. It's not playing Sheffield at home. It's not quite the same 3 points drop. Either way, A win would have been fantastic. I'm taking the point. We march on. It's what we do next at Burnley and next at Newcastle that's really going to test us.
What about Gutmann there?
It was good, wasn't it?
It was really good.
Yeah, can't believe we're winning the league.
That's
great
unbelievable.
news.
I know,
Great,
yeah.
Is
great.
that what I came to the conclusion of?
That's what I
think
came to
did.
the conclusion of by listening to you.
Yeah. Honestly,
We can win the league, is my conclusion.
Yes.
This is the best thing that's happened to me at Christmas. You
haven't even heard Rob's Christmas message on bedding in you.
They haven't heard Rob's Christmas
shit,
message
is
on
that coming
bedding.
out today?
Tomorrow, mate. Christmas Day.
Oh.
Christmas Day bedding
Video
in.
subscribers.
Look forward to that. Klopp's post-match. I want to do a couple of things, Ian. The first is, if I've got a minor irritation with Liverpool over the course of the game, set pieces were always going to be a danger. And, I was saying it on shows before and all over the place. They're a big side. They play for them. They've got the delivery with Odegaard. They back that idea of the way they play in there. It's perfectly legitimate. And then there's a couple of daft set pieces that Liverpool conceded at the start of the match, frankly. The second one obviously leads to the goal in there. That was a frustration for me, really, in terms of just be a bit better first five, Liverpool. Just be a bit more switched on, maybe just play for territory a bit more, stop trying to pass. Maybe you just knock it down the other end of the pitch and pen them in and get through the first five, because it does end up just looking a bit daft.
Yeah, you can imagine the manager would have been hugely frustrated with that so early. And yes, the set piece thing, it's actually a really good set piece in that they all start off offside and they all get themselves back on in the nick of time, and it is really, really tight when you see it back. But it's a good header. Doesn't really give the goalkeeper, doesn't give the goalkeeper any chance to even really go for it. It's that clean, and it's a good delivery by a really good footballer in Odegaard as well, who I thought was really good for certainly the first part of the game. We'd be frustrated as well because Gakpo gives it away really cheaply, and I don't think he has a good game. It's hard to remember him finding a shirt in that first 30-40 minutes. I thought he was poor. I understood why the manager might go for him, but I wasn't overly happy with the selection. I thought there was a couple in there that I've maybe forced away, and it comes back to the point I made before about there's quite a number of them, certainly in attacking areas, who are showing a bit of inconsistency. So you can make an argument for lots of them to start, or maybe not start, as the case may be. And even though I gave Darwin a little bit of what I would call constructive criticism last week, because I like him a lot, I still would have played him, because I just think even when he's not firing in terms of scoring goals, he's still a fucking menace. And I like
Did you think the team I felt was set up to play for Darwin? And Gakpo I felt a little bit sorry for him. I thought he was doing a bad Darwin impression in that he wasn't dropping into a 10-y, false 9-y role. He was playing as a target man. And I thought, you're just big, but you're not very good at doing that. No. And the team seemed to want him to do that. And he
were
couldn't
playing
do it.
balls over to the top term times,
that's what I mean.
and I was just like, he's not going to chase that down.
No, he was asking for it, though.
Was he?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what he was sort of trying to do, but I was just like, it's not doing him any favours, that, even though I agree, I don't think he played particularly well.
And I also think, you can make a case for, and I like this player a lot, and I've kind of backed him so many times, even when he maybe had poor games, but there's a Luis Diaz problem at the minute in that he's not playing very well, and there's probably a lot of mitigation, and it could be the injury, it could be the physical thing where he's not quite over it, although I've seen snapshots of him playing for his country, but he still looks pretty good, to be honest. Or it could be the personal trauma he's gone through, but I thought he was probably quite fortunate to start the game as well. But on the Gakpo thing, and I've said this before on shows, like the pre-match warm-up shows, he's a unit. He's 6'3", 6'4". He sometimes plays like he's 5'8", 5'9". In that he's not that physical. For his size, he should be far better at shielding the ball, protecting it, putting himself about, being a bit of a nuisance, knocking centre-halves about. He doesn't really ever do that. I think his physical kind of, the way he looks, doesn't necessarily play out on the pitch at times. And again, listen, I'm maybe being slightly harsh, because I do like him as a player. But I think with a lot of our forwards at the minute, they'll have maybe one or two poor performances, and you wouldn't be surprised if Gakpo started barely, he might score two, and you go, well, that's great, isn't it? But then he might play again against Newcastle, and it might be a performance that you've just seen against Arsenal. So some of this is back to, some of them are quite new to the club, some of them are still kind of 23, 24, and you're going to get a little bit of inconsistency, although that's not that young nowadays. So yeah, I maybe wasn't overly kind of into the team in terms of the lineup, but I understood it, and then I'm sure we'll come on to it. The subs don't really work.
There was one where Gakpo, it's second half, and he pulls onto the fullback, onto the left back, and goes wide and gets a direct ball into him, and he holds it down, chests it off, and pops it off, and we get a shot away. And when he does that, I'm like, oh, that's great. But I'm like, but we're on 55 minutes here. Do you know what I mean? It's the first time we've sort of managed to do that, and I didn't mind the team in that. A bit like you say, Ian, I think there's whoever got left out couldn't have complained. Basically, apart from, unless it was Mo Salah, but whoever of the three realistically got left out, I don't think could have necessarily complained. Gakpo plays well in the week, gets his goal. I understand why he sort of keeps the shirt in that regard. Diaz and Nunes, I think, was a bit of a toss up. I'd have probably liked to see a bit of Nunes there again after he did well in the week, but then he's left Darwin out. He's left Diaz out in the week, to keep him fresh. So it makes sense to sort of play him. I think legs are a bit of an issue. It's a busy time. Klopp's talked about it, in the build up all these games, and I think that lends into the subs as well. I think. As I say, we are going to go on to talk about the subs. We're all sort of, mentioning that. But I think, for me, if it was a different circumstance, I don't think he'd have made any. And we've seen this before in big games, big Liverpool City games, and there's been like one sub between the two teams. Because I think when a game's that intense and that high quality and going that well, from a Liverpool point of view, as it was second half, I think managers do tend to stick.
And I don't. This is not. And please do not think for a second this isn't solely conspiratorial, because I'm just exhausted with that conversation. But do you think, obviously, Arsenal's next game's the 28th and ours is the 26th? Arsenal are at home next game, we're away. Now, I think Arsenal have obviously got a tougher opponent. They've got West Ham, we've got Burnley, John. But do you think if that was flipped, if we were, even if we were just playing the 28th, do you think that he therefore makes different decisions with the subs?
100%, and that's fine, and that's not being conspiratorial or whatever it is, or whatever the correct word is, or maybe I've just made one up. But no, it's just the reality of the situation that managers are in, so they're making decisions based on,
because he's got a big gap between Burnley and Newcastle, which other managers won't have, so it goes both ways.
Yeah, it does go both ways, but he's looking at that now and thinking, we've got another game in 3 days' time, and so...
And I want Curtis Jones to play it, so...
Exactly, and so he's in those situations where he's just trying to keep everyone, I think, as fresh as he can, really, and he does that through the subs, and like I say, I think, it even looked at the time... It's funny because the weather didn't really play a massive part on Wednesday in the end, but you could see the ball moving.
Yeah,
like there was balls going longer than just suddenly coming back like a golf shot, wasn't it? That had sort of dragged back on it, and it was. And
Raya nearly ended up in a real pickle first half with one.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think the players who were up to speed with it. You sort of keep on if you can, don't you? Because you say, well, they're sort of used to it now. I didn't think Gravenberch could just cope with the game at all, and I really like him as a player. But he comes on and he looks like all football's a surprise.
Yeah. That was one of the things. I was like, what?
But then I thought it took Sabos like 45 minutes to get to grips with it.
Yeah.
But then once he did, I thought he played really well until he ironically tired at the end. He had his best 20 just before the subs, which is a great time if you want to play a full game to have your best 20. But sorry, love.
No, I think the sub thing was in a way to re-energise our inevitably waning momentum. I think, in as much as firstly, let's say he had preordained those subs before kickoff because of the fixture thing, and I think he'd have started with Darwin Núñez if he hadn't given him 90 the other week, and he was always going to get him on 60, 62. But
doesn't have to give him 90 against West Ham, no.
No, he didn't. I think he just. What I mean is he decided that order of play, but I think in an ideal world he'd have had 5 days between every set of games, and Darwin would have played all of them. Quite frankly, I think he fancies him in that position,
and I think he fancies him against Burnley.
Yeah, and I think he fancies him against Burnley. I mean it in that sense. But I think he knew that when we were going to come out against he'd obviously wound them up at half time to give that big 20 after half time. But it's inevitable that Arsenal are not going to put up with that for 50 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think he thought we can have a second wave of this, and that's why I think he goes 3. Whereas, he might have just settled for one on 60, another one on 68, another one on 75. But I think he goes, let's now Arsenal think they've surfed our wave, let's hit them again hard.
I think the other thing on that, though, is you can only break the game twice more. Because the Gomez thing first half, you could only break the game twice more. So that's part of why I think he ends up doing what he does.
Sure. And I always forget this. I have to say this.
Everyone forgets this.
I always forget this.
The number of rows I'm having with different people in the ground about this at different times. You can't do what you're saying. It's against the rules.
Can you just message me every time we make a sub, just to keep me grounded on this, because I'm getting it wrong every time.
Yeah, everyone struggles a little bit with that. The key period, though, Ian, does remain that period after half time. I pulled some numbers from StatsBomb this morning. Always very, very kind of them. They go in at half time, and the cumulative XG for Liverpool is 0.23, which is low, but Arsenal's is low as well. It's a low XG game in total, but it shouldn't be. The minute before Trent Alexander-Arnold's chance, the cumulative XG is 0.47. given Liverpool's dominance in that period and how much they've got the ball running at Arsenal's backline for the 15 minutes anyway immediately after half time, that's really, really low. Liverpool should create at least one chance of that value, of that difference in that period. Every chance Liverpool create when they get the ball in that period should be of that value. And that to me it's interesting. The manager says some interesting stuff. The reaction to 1-0 was brilliant. He was super intense, nearly too intense, had to calm down in moments, mix it up a bit better, so we did, created really good moments. He's not wrong, but where I'm a bit like, I just don't know if we calm down in moments enough, Jurgen, in that period between 45 and 65, because they really should be creating 2 or 3 gilt-edged opportunities. That's my overall criticism, not the idea of a miss here and there. They've got to do, if you're picking the ball up and you're 4v3 or 4v4 and you're Liverpool and you're at home and you're not picking it up 50 yards from their goal, you're picking it up 30 yards from their goal, you've got to be creating at least 1 or 2 very good chances, and they create 0.
Yeah, I think at times that's been a little bit of a theme where I've come out of games thinking we should have done better there. The final ball or the pass before the pass could have been a little bit better. And, you know, you're right to kind of talk about the kind of big chance that Trent has when it is, 5v2, 4v1, something
4v1,
like that.
it's 4v1.
What minute is that? I've lost track.
70, 71, 72.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You just because he's so technically gifted. And I watched it back. It does come up a little bit,
bobbles, doesn't it?
But only a little bit. But you still fancy him to get it kind of on target from there, because he's such a good footballer. And by the way,
some balls bounce, don't they, famously?
It can happen. Apparently, it's not that unusual.
Yeah,
so
balls are bouncy.
And he's, you see him during the game when some of the passes he's executing are just fucking ridiculous, quite frankly. I mean, the one for the goal, which...
I like that he does it again straight after to prove it wasn't a fluke.
It's unbelievable. It really is. His execution of pass is just off the scale, and Salah does really well with that. I don't think Zinchenko covers himself in glory, but that's not Salah's problem.
It's not yours either, don't you worry about it.
Definitely mine. I didn't lose any sleep over the John, I'm not going to lie. Liverpool should do better in that bit. But I think if you're Arsenal, if you're talking about the game from their perspective, you're going to come in for some fairly rough treatment at Anfield at some point, and you've just got to ride it, because no one's going to go to Anfield, even when Liverpool haven't been great over the years. You don't get a free pass where you just can dominate the game for 90 minutes. Now, I know 1 or 2 Arsenal teams have come and done that. You always think of the 2-2 game where Heskey scores, and they were phenomenal that day, and I was just glad to get out with a 2-2. But normally, coming to Anfield's a really, really tough game. Even when you hear about the United teams, and Keane and Neville will talk about it, even when they were at the best, Liverpool maybe weren't. They knew they were in for a tough time. There'd be maybe 10 or 15 minute spell where they'd come under some pressure. So I think you've got to give Arsenal a little bit of credit, albeit that chance.
Put that chance to one side, Ian. What annoys me right in the run to that chance is I'm not seeing great saves or great goal line tackles.
Fair, yeah.
And that's, for me, it's not the idea of you've got them. They were at the ragged edge. They were at the ragged edge in terms of how they could play football. But what we were then doing wasn't going, right, you're going to remember the Saliba block for the rest of your life. There was none of that.
But there's also, there's been times where I'm coming off the ground and thinking, this goalkeeper's not making enough worldies for my liking. I want to see goalkeepers making unbelievable saves.
Exactly that.
And it's, you see it at United, don't you? You're thinking, well, he's not a very good goalkeeper. He's proven that over the course of the season. Certainly since he's come to the Premier League, he's not demonstrated the skill set where you're saying he's a top keeper. Liverpool don't test them, they have 30-odd shots, but they shoot at the wrong moments. They're hitting it from 2 yards away into players' legs and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's one of them. It's hugely frustrating. One thing we didn't mention, the penalty. It's an unbelievable decision. So you can talk about hard lines. If Liverpool get that, what is it? It's 1-0 at the time, isn't it?
Yeah. The reason why I'm not that bothered is I think we go 1-1 not that long after it goes 1-0 after that incident. And in your game mind, if that's at 1-1, then I'm prepared to burn the ground down. That it's at 1-0 is where I just become a little bit more philosophical, because we go 1-1 anyway about 5 minutes later.
But you don't know what happens. They might lose their heads a little bit like they've done in the past. And you've seen the manager lose his head in the past on the touchline. And if that had gone against them, and by the way, it's a nailed on penalty. So
it's insane.
I'm saying gone against them, but they'd have argued the toss. You've never seen a more clear penalty than that. It's unbelievable. It's fucking unbelievable.
Well, I'm all right with the referee. Maybe not. For me, this is entirely...
I don't think the ref can see it from where he is at the time. The lino can definitely see it, but they're all shit houses. Let's be fucking clear on that. How can they look at that on a review and go, that's fine? That's fine. Apparently Neville tried to say it was fine. I've not heard him say it.
The gymnastics to try and say that, to try and find some way that, he's not falling over. Salah's about to turn him, and he knows he's done.
He doesn't even
and
fall over. He doesn't even
fall over. He doesn't. He's having to shift onto his left leg and his left hand because Salah's turned him. And that's what's happening.
So I'll just say again, the first rule is we take no notice of any Mancunians on anything to do with Liverpool Football Club.
I've not heard them, by the way, but apparently
we just take no notice, like that, like he doesn't speak, like silent. He opens his mouth and silence comes out. is the fucking rule, and that way we'll all have better lives. Take no notice of Mancunians. But on it, Rob, I'm shocked Saka stays on, and that's not to do with sort of a grand one. I think that it's a bit weird, the thing with Shimakash, because it involves the manager. He's then a bit petulant a few minutes later, Saka. There's another couple in the second half where if he hasn't got a yellow, he might get one. What he ends up not getting sent off for, I couldn't believe. It's just, even if it's not a red, it's a second yellow.
I wasn't close to it. You're going to have to talk me through it.
He goes in with 2 feet. He's got 2 feet off the ground.
He slips, you know.
Well, that's
but that's shit.
I know.
So does Curtis Jones.
I know. He does. Listen, well, in the ground, I thought, oh my God, I mean, that could be a red card.
Yeah, I've seen it back, but...
And they kind of, I mean, he does slip, so it's an accident, but yeah, I mean, you could still give a yellow card for it. No problem.
And also, we've lived the reality of literally one of our players, but other players as well. Sometimes you have hard lines, as we had to say after that. Sometimes, now again, I don't think that would have changed the game.
I mean, if he scores straight after that, I am also playing the ground.
I don't think it would have changed the game because it was 2 minutes left on the clock, and I don't think the handball would have changed the game. But there is a wider point here, Rob, which is just be better at officiating, please, lads, because it's going to drive us all mad by the end of the season. You've got to be a bit better. You've got the cameras, you've got all the gear. It's got to be a bit better than this yet again.
What I'm getting sort of dazzled, bemused, exasperated by with each passing week this season is that you find out there's a new VAR protocol you didn't know existed. So the other week against Palace, after about 3 minutes to play, the ref just grabs the ball and goes, "Nah, I'm not having it. It was a penalty 3 minutes ago." And I go, "Well, I've literally never seen that before. We've been doing this about 4 years now. How's that now a thing?" And when was the national news headlines that you could do that? Because obviously, in the Diaz case, it didn't apply. No one said in the aftermath of that. We all said it should be that sort of thing. But anyway, so I just harken back to the penalty. If you read what's been said after the game, it's saying the VAR decided not to have a little look at that one because the referee, they just thought, he's probably got that. They said they didn't look at it. Now, I'm always being told they look at everything, but specifically the reporting has been they decided not to look at that, not review it. I'm guessing in the Saka thing, they said, the ref's probably got that one too. The less we look at the screens, the better. I mean, is this a new thing? Could we have... I mean, yes, I'm exasperated. I don't understand the clarity of it. Did you see those reports about that? They didn't on the Odegaard penalty that VAR didn't check it. They didn't even have a look. It's not that they saw a slip or something. They didn't have a look, apparently.
That story might change.
Well, yeah, check complete.
Yeah,
check incomplete.
That story might change. I want to go back to though, John, because I think it is my frustration where I've got one. We talk a lot about. There's been a lot of chat about Liverpool's attackers a little bit. Are they scoring enough goals and so on and so forth? And I think that period yesterday between half time and the Trent miss, I think it is one of the key issues. Is that it isn't just the idea of who it is or isn't kicking it into the goal. It's what's the quality of chance that you're creating when there's a really top quality chance there to be created. And I think for me, you can talk about whether or not you're taking your chances. But for me, sometimes are we scoring enough goals chat? And I think we were having this under Klopp, 16-17, moving a little bbit into 17-18, and then suddenly it clicks when we move into the calendar year of 2018, and the chance quality every game it felt like went up a notch. And I think we're still in terms of talking about this team as a transitional team. I think that's one of the last building blocks. They're brilliant out of possession. They get it back, and then they need to be a bit better in possession. But the manager's delighted because they're brilliant out of possession. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, but it is building blocks, and you use that word there, and it comes back to what Rob was saying before about it's a developing team, and we're all hoping and believing, and the signs there that it could be.
There's a lot of evidence.
The next great Liverpool side, but they're not there yet. As Rob said, they're ahead of schedule, and these are the things that you're talking about. Neil, I agree. It is frustrating. We're not creating enough quality of chances and stuff like that. So it is happening, but it's that happens over time by individuals playing better. And I know that sounds stupid, but I think
that's true.
Everyone we've signed in the last 2 years, there's a lot of them who look really good players, but they're not at they don't consistently perform at the high level that what we need them to at the moment. Now, a lot of them are still quite young. A lot of them, they're not. The great Liverpool side that Rob sort of referenced before, these lads were in the peak. They were absolutely flying, and they got to the point where, they were like top class, almost world class 8 times out of 10. Do you know what I mean? Like every time they went onto the pitch, they performed. Nearly every time they performed at such a high level, but that was individually. So individually, they were putting in these fantastic performances that these new players aren't capable yet of delivering on a consistent basis. And then you throw in the collective elements that they're all still getting to know each other and they're all still, working on these passages of play and things like that. And that's not quite clicking yet either. Now we're seeing signs, we're seeing understanding, we're seeing things growing.
And the great out of possession against Arsenal, who no one's done that to this season. They really do a number on them.
They're doing a lot of stuff that the managers and the coaches will be really pleased with, but they're not there yet. So I think... we are sort of getting frustrated, but we need to remember, like Rob says, that this is a team developing, this is a new side, and within that we've got a chance of winning the league, and isn't that brilliant? It would feel like a cheat one this year almost, wouldn't it? If they can get it, it feel like almost like a freebie. Yeah. I'd be like, well, just fucking watch us now. If you give us this one, you fucking all the best. You know what I mean? Because this team, it is sort of developing, and we do need to, like Rob said before, you do need to sort of check yourselves almost and just think, just sort of remember that. I say, and I include all of them. It's no surprise to me who the best performers this season are the lads who've won leagues. Do you know what I mean? The ones who've really stepped up week after week after week. Listen, we like Szoboszlai, but he's been hot and cold this season. We like Gravenberch, but he's disappointing when he sort of comes on. Others, are doing well. They're good players who are doing well, but they're not playing as well as Virgil or Mo Salah, and that's not because they're not as talented or they won't get there. It's just the stages that they are in careers and what they've done and what they know how to do on the football pitch. And that 4-on-1, Mo Salah's the coolest man in Anfield. He's certainly cooler than me. I was losing my shit. And
look how we break on that. Yeah. That's not we break like the red arrows. That to me is it's 5. It's Mo and 4, isn't it, on that break?
You went well. It's the ones that matter. It's 4-on-1. They've got Saliba racing back and Nunez is sort of racing back.
Nunez is doing a job because Saliba thinks he's keeping Nunez quiet. Nunez is also keeping Saliba out.
He's just moving him there, but also Saliba's not getting back to where Salah is or any business on the other side of the pitch. That's why it's a frustrating one.
I think the interesting thing with development, what the thing we've been on and John's expanded on is a team can evolve during the course of a season.
Yeah.
This team today is not the same team we will see in May. I don't think.
I agree.
We may have to go backwards to go forwards, but I don't think so. I think we will continue to go forwards. I think you could see Arsenal being ahead of us in terms of their patterns of play. Jonathan Northcroft used the word choreography in his report. I thought that's exactly the right word. Arsenal's choreography in that 20-minute spell was like, this team doesn't have that. Now, the great Liverpool sides of 3-4 years ago, 2-3 years ago, have that choreography. This Liverpool side doesn't have it. So, it's, as you said, it's all out of the ball.
That choreography was no good to them between 45 and 70, though.
No, their choreography. Yeah. No, not when they were in the proverbial washing machine. And I think once we find that, and I think it will come. This is why I feel it's a good point because. Stay in the game, and if it clicks, and it could just click, like it did in 18, by the way, if it just clicks, and we can have a little runaway 8-game win, we can go, well, we were 3 points off Arsenal, we did that, and we won 8 on the bounce, we won the fucking league.
My one note on your wider point, I'm sort of all right with, but it's more that we go the Emirates in 6 weeks.
Don't lose that one. That'd be a good point.
That would be, but it's more the idea of, where are we then? If we were talking about April, I might feel a little bit differently. We go the Emirates in 6 weeks, but we may not have Salah, so it's worth sort of pointing that out as well, swings and roundabouts.
I think on John's points, and this is why I'm probably a little bit more relaxed this morning, because I think you have got to keep reminding yourself where this Liverpool team is, because I thought we'd be kicking around about fourth, maybe even fifth, maybe getting to third, but I didn't think we'd be in a title race, and we almost certainly are if we can keep our heads. And Rob's point about the next 2 games is massive, because it always feels like you're saying that, no, the next 2 or 3 are massive, and then there's a little bit of a break, but I think the thing
massive because they're winnable.
Well, yeah, absolutely. The thing I said at the start of the show, and about 1 or 2 maybe showing inconsistency, and I put a tweet out last night more in frustration where I said something like, there's quite a few here who are hit and miss footballers, but what I meant by that is that you're not quite sure whether they're going to turn up or not. And when you spoke before, Neil, about with and without the ball, I almost think Szoboszlai encapsulates a lot of that, because at times this season he's been sensational with the ball, certainly the first part of his Liverpool career, less so yesterday for the 45, but he's great without the ball. He's brilliant without the ball. He's such an athlete. He's put himself about the pitch, but on the ball it's a little bit scruffy and a little bit sloppy. But you could probably say that for lots of them as well. And as I said before, when I say hit and miss, it's not just the new lads. There's a Darwin Núñez, there's a Luis Diaz question where they've been here a little bit longer and it's a little bit hit and miss from them. And there's different mitigation levels for different footballers as well, because they're all on their own kind of personal journey and stuff. So I do agree with the boys. Come March, April, May, then you maybe see a different version. But to be where we are right now, if you want to reflect on it from a positive point of view, we're in such a good position. And I know the Man City thing's really interesting. You're not quite sure where they are yet. And at some point, they may go and bang 10 together and you go, fucking hell, back here are we? Again, we might be. You just don't know. They may come back and do that. But you've not really seen a huge sign that they are going to do that just yet. But it could happen. But they're in a funny situation where they've done 3 on the spin, they've won the treble. There's a reason why the great Liverpool and Manchester United teams never went and did 4 in a row in terms of league titles, because it's dead hard to do. So they might not do it. But, John's point before, you've got to be there or thereabouts. You've got to make sure you're in the mix. You can't let this one slip. And that's why you get a little bit frustrated when you don't take the opportunity, because you know that the door's been left open a little bit for the team to maybe force their way through. And Liverpool could be one of those sides.
Some individual performances, Rob. I thought from minute 5, Konate was brilliant. It's a shame about minute 0 to 5, but from minute 5, and if anything, it speaks volumes to his character that from minute 5 he is absolutely brilliant. But he is absolutely brilliant. I thought all 4 centre halves were great, by the way, but Konate was brilliant from minute 5.
Yeah, his one-on-one work. There's a number of times I lost count of yesterday. I had my heart in my mouth where he's being stood up by somebody, and you think, if he's wrong by a millimetre here, it's a penalty. Or something terrible's going to happen, and you go, "Oh, Jesus Christ, he's got it!" It's unbelievable. It was the equivalent of a keeper making worldy saves. I thought that some of those one-on-one challenges, and what's nice to see as well is he's had a really checkered season, hasn't he? Niggly injuries, not getting any rhythm in his game, and he's seen even. Dare we say it, Quansah get to the edge of almost taking his place. I actually wondered after Quansah's performance against West Ham whether he was ready to sort of move into a pole position and be given his head. I know that sounds maybe a bit far-fetched, but I could see Klopp thinking that way. I think Konate would react. That was a player reacting to a challenge yesterday. It was a player rising to prove his level. It was world class. It was absolutely world class. I also think he's a little bit underrated in what he can do on the ball. Not that we saw it yesterday, because that was more of a sort of a defender's defending game. But, we saw that he's had these little cameos like against Luton where he runs the length of the pitch and non-clearly nearly scores. But he can break forward with the ball. He doesn't quite punch it into midfield the way a Matip can or whoever, but he is...
When he nearly lost it last 5, though, I lost my mind.
Konate?
Yeah, he carries it forward last 5.
Yeah, he gets a little push, doesn't he? Then loses his balance.
And it is probably just about a free kick, but it's one of them that the referee doesn't give because the referee decided he was refereeing a different game. And if they'd have got in, again, the matches would have been involved. It was quite something at that point. I just think I'm enjoying him immensely, John, when he's in that sort of mood. I think he likes playing them. I think he likes when there's a lot of defending to do. I think this is a key point, really. I think some defenders like to be defending, and I think that Konate's at his most comfortable when I've just got to win the ball back off him and then pass it to Trent and everything will be all right.
Yeah, he got in a real rhythm of a battle, didn't he? And he was always sort of like he had tunnel vision, whereas I'm just gonna win tackles, I'm just gonna win the ball, I'm just gonna sort of defend. And some of it, there was times where you thought a player had gone past him, and then suddenly he pulls a leg round. There was 1 or 2 certainly where I thought they're in here, they're in. It wasn't even like he was standing him up like what we're saying. He looked past us and over, and he gets something back. It was. In terms of an eye-catching centre-half performance, I can't remember many better. Do you know what I mean?
Well, there's him in the same fixture last season where we all came off saying give him the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah. In terms of obviously there's lots of subtleties to defend it as well, and I appreciate that. And Virgil will never throw in a performance like that because he's not that sort of the defender, if you like. But for someone who very much is, it was quite something to watch. Really, you're coming off the pitch thinking there's 4 or 5 tackles there that were just unbelievable, but really helped us in those situations as well. Sometimes we sort of throw a tackle in and it goes out for the throw and everyone cheers and the lad's like, yeah, I'm sound with having a throw, to be honest with you. But these ones, everyone mattered. Do you know what I mean? And everyone was important and got us out of really tricky situations. It was a brilliant performance.
Endo in the middle of the park, Ian. thought from about minute 10, again, when the game settled, I think he's part of what settles the game in Liverpool's favour. He turns away, carries it. Liverpool are struggling to get out a little bit, and he goes, no, lads, we'll just do this, it's all right. And then I think he pings it to Diaz, it hits Diaz's feet. And we sort of don't look back from that point a little bit, really. I was so impressed with him. One little note is I do think, come the last 5 or 10, he's knackered, but then that's perfectly legitimate given everything that was going on the pitch. I just thought he was terrific, I really did.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I thought it was his best performance by a distance. Now, I talked about him a little bit after the United game, and I thought he did well that day in terms of he won all his battles and his challenges, or most of them. And I think you could look at the game and go, well, he's played well. But his on-the-ball stuff concerned me a little bit. And I talked about maybe, he was showing signs of, maybe looking like a mid-table player in how he was getting the ball and being a little bit cautious with it and ponderous and maybe giving it back to the centre-halves. But I understood it because that's the level he's come from. There was none of that yesterday.
Absolutely none. It was mad, wasn't it?
Absolutely none of that yesterday. It's
by a mile the hardest game he'll ever have played in, and he's that good.
He was so good. And because of the level of opponents he's up against as well, it almost shocks you a little bit more because he's up against top class. He's up against really, really good footballers. And, at the minute, they are the best team in the country. They are top of the pile. So, yeah, brilliant from him. And he wasn't alone, I think we can talk about being disappointed, but there's probably 4 or 5 that just have really, really good games.
Jones was great when he was on.
Jones was good. Taking him off felt like a wrong decision. I understood some of the subs, but I didn't get that one because of the control he offers. And I think with Gravenberch, because he is he's in a bit of an unknown quantity, and he comes on and has a really poor time. But there's Joe Gomez as well, who is just... I thought Gomez was sensational, and I'm so happy for him because...
I feel like watching Taram.
You know what, John? I feel like I've gone to war for Joe, like loads, but there was coming a point where I was starting to worry, and I was thinking I might be wrong here. He might be fucking done. He might be done because everyone kept telling me he was done, and I'm watching him against Napoli, and I'm thinking, Ian, you might be wrong. He might be. Yeah, I know. It's a great effort, by the way.
2. The curler and the near post.
When you see some of the clips on the internet of him taking free kicks, you wonder why he's not scored, because he strikes the ball lovely. But I just thought his performance, and I remember doing end of season reviews, and I'd spend about 10 minutes talking about Joe Gomez, like at the end of 18-19 or 19-20, and you're thinking, what a player. Honestly, I loved him to bits, and then you're thinking, maybe he just can't trust his body, and it's got to the point now where he'll never be able to trust his body again. But I just thought he was brilliant. I thought he was...
I trust his body.
To come on into it, and you see it, players are coming on in that game and they're really struggling to get to the pace of it. Yeah. He gets to the pace of that game.
And Ketty was like a bit like Gravenberch, and he was like, football, what? This is a
bit fast, isn't it? But Joe just absolutely settles in. And by the way, he's up against what Arsenal players would probably call... maybe their best player. They'll try and talk about him being the best player in the league. He's nowhere near that, but he's a very, very good footballer. And Joe Gomez was outstanding against him.
Gomez and Endo.
Yeah.
The heroes we need.
The
heroes we didn't expect.
Start with Endo. I mean, you could see lots of people commenting down the weeks. Have we actually bought a player who's not Premier League level? You could see that at certain points. And there were moments against Palace where I thought, despite some better performances before then, this is what we worried about. This is the fear we had when we dropped our expectations and settled for this kind of footballer as a stopgap. But there have been real signs, I think, and that Arsenal one's a mark. I think he needs to himself think that's my level, that's my platform. I'd like to see him develop a bit of swagger in his game on the back of it, and I think confidence. I think confidence will go a long way with this kind of football. I actually think he's got the tools. I think he's an acute passer. He times his tackle. He's technically, I think, good enough to play that position. I think it's a confidence thing. He needs to start to believe he deserves to be there. And that was a massive step forward for me. I think him having the pitch in front of him is always better than him facing his own goal. Joe Gomez, different story because he's been through this journey for Liverpool that you've described, Ian. Yes, he's sensational. But the better he's getting, the more anxiety he's causing me because he's now pivotal to what happens in the next month for us because there's no signs, including the way Klopp was talking that Andy Robbo's going to be back within the next week or two. I think it's going to be I think we'll be lucky to have him for the Arsenal away at the end of the month or beginning of February, whenever that is. So he's going to have to play game in, game out, Joe Gomez now, really, more or less. Well, and then who else are you going to put there? Luke Chambers.
I think he's going to have to play 4 games between now and the 21st of January, including the 21st of January.
So there's some spacing in. He's not going to play Arsenal in the cup. So.
I think that. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
That game.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that it'll be an interesting team, Arsenal in the cup. There's the Fulham game on the Wednesday that immediately follows it as well. It's worth pointing that out.
2 Fulhams, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Burnley. 2 Fulhams. That's 5, I think.
The second Fulham's the other side of the 21st.
It's it's the 24th. Okay, fine. But in the month, but either way you look at it, there are back-to-back. Klopp has resisted back-to-back selections of Joe Gomez.
So he's going to have to play against Burnley. The key point here is he's done an hour against Arsenal in those conditions. He is going to have to start against Burnley, and then from there is then a 5-day gap to Newcastle.
That helps. There's no doubt about it. But the general thing is that he has this fragility. We've seen all season long that Klopp. I don't know if he started him back-to-back at all this season, maybe once. We saw in Matip, the minute he did play Matip 3 on the bounce, we lose Matip.
He's tried to do it with Konate as well, hasn't he? Just managed them all a little bit.
I don't think Konate's starting Burnley, but we'll come on to that in a minute.
No.
They were great. The footballers mentioned were great.
Yeah, and I was talking before about players and the new ones we've got in and what's, individually sort of holding them back, really. And a lot of it does come down to mentality. And that's not me saying that the players have got necessarily a poor mentality, but it's that mentality of, I'm going to be, on it every game. And consistency, I think, comes as much from mentality as it does from anything else. And like them two have got it. Like Endo, I think mentally is elite. I think, to be able to go into a game like that, like you said, Neil, he never played anything like that before, and to put in the performance he did shows what an elite mentality he's got. Now, is that enough to offset the physical limitations that he has sort of as a footballer? We'll have to wait and see. I agree with Rob. I think there is more for him to come. So maybe his mentality will drag up, his ability, or maybe there's more in there that even he knows or sort of we know at the moment. But to put in a performance like that in a game like that just shows why he's captain of his country, why he's achieved everything that he has. Again, you read about his career, and he wasn't getting picked for his local team and under 16s and stuff like that, and he was like, oh yeah, don't worry, I'll just do this. And the way he sort of plotted his route to Liverpool, it shows that elite mentality, and he showed that very much yesterday, and you made up for him, and hopefully there is more to come. Like Rob says, hopefully he'll grow sort of confidence from it, and there was signs in his passing. You mentioned the one to Diaz there that he sort of can do it really, but I think what he did show in that game, in the cut and thrust of that game was great. And Gomez again, Gomez is a winner. I was talking about the winners before, and Virgil and Salah, he's in that gang. He's won everything with them, and like Ian says, at the end of some of those seasons where we were, winning Champions League and stuff like that, he was playing a lot of games. He was part of those teams. He was centre half with Virgil for the big stretch. He was doing bits of obviously right back and stuff like that as well. He's been part of these winning teams, and so he just comes on and just goes, right, I know exactly what I need to do in this game. He comes on and could see that he's not delighted to play left back, but he knows exactly what he needs to do, and nearly scores, like Rob said, nearly gets the game.
An underlapping left back, really,
yeah.
but who's got a right foot. So in a way, all the problems we saw with him at left back against Luton became virtues, I thought, against Arsenal yesterday. So whether we'd worked on that or Joe's just worked it out in his head, I thought that was interesting.
It's the direct running, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What he was doing, and he played the conditions great. He played the situation brilliantly, and his defending. We're talking about him going forward. He was defending against wide players who were frightening. Was great. I loved it. Loved his performance. I just as we all do. Just if he got a winner, then
oh my god.
Well, we wouldn't be doing this show. So we will, but maybe from the crock.
Yes. I when the one that curled, I was right behind, and I like fell. I was up to celebrate, and it just doesn't come back enough. And
he should have won first half as well. I know. He should have.
Okay, the Joe Gomez winner is coming. I was just thinking, if we get a Joe Gomez winner in this, I just don't think we're all making Christmas Day, let alone anything else.
But I don't want to be like. I always thought thought when he scores, we'll all have a laugh. You
Yeah,
know, like when
no,
Joel
no,
Matip
no,
scores.
no.
That one, it would have been this visceral, fucking angry,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Burnley's famous for defenders getting winners last minute. I mean, if
Yeah.
Joe Gomez goes and does that at Burnley, then fucking hell.
Well, Burnley, it's a good win for them. They beat Fulham away. They have been improving over a period of time. I've written a team down. Do you want to hear it, or do you want to do your own? Okay.
All right. No, I want to hear yours first.
Okay, well, I want your approval at all steps. Okay.
I'm ready.
Alisson Becker in goal.
Yeah.
You approve, okay.
Yeah.
Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back.
We've got no choice, yeah.
Gerald Quansah, centre half.
Yeah.
Virgil van Dijk,
yeah,
centre half.
yeah.
Joe Gomez, left back.
Yeah.
Wataru Endo, holding midfielder.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that. Because I think we might be putting too much. How many games has he started now on the bounce?
I don't know, but who are you going to start there in his stead? Rob?
Well, it can't be Trent, can
Talk
it?
me through it.
You could. I've been thinking for a while in my head without saying it out loud in case people laughed at me, that you could.
Most of my thoughts.
There's a game where you think you're going to have all the ball where Curtis Jones could play there. If you couldn't, well, I always thought Trent would play there, but now you can't play Trent there. I do think there's a game where you could. I'm not saying you will. I think your shout is likelier, and you may think, yeah, one more game. Because I tell you what, if Newcastle was 3 days away rather than 5, I think you'd have to.
But this is
I think
where
you're
I'm
probably right.
But I'm going to get funkier with you.
Go on.
Harvey Elliott and Curtis Jones as the two in front. So you rest Szoboszlai, you've got him to come off the bench. You've got Gravenberch to come off the bench. If the game's going well, you can do some of what you're talking about. You've got
I agree
5
with that.
subs.
Our best midfield performance of the season was
Yeah.
those 3.
I probably wouldn't. I'd play Harvey Elliott, but I probably wouldn't play him there.
Oh, so you'd use him in attack.
Yeah, I think.
So where are you playing?
I think I'd put Mo Salah through the middle.
Okay, well, I've gone Salah, Gakpo, Nunez up top.
I'd probably.
Is there any chat on Diaz, by the way? Is he injured?
No,
or?
there was one of them where the manager post-match and said, everyone was having a bit of a laugh. Or something like that. Like, Diaz might be fine.
I thought he looked like he was in a lot of trouble because he put his hand up. You know when they put their arm up to go, I'm done here. But it was.
The manager says afterwards, he's obviously hugely worried about Shimakass. He's not particularly worried about Diaz.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking
Maybe he starts.
Diaz and Jota on the bench. There's talk Jota will be back in and around, but I don't think he just plunges them straight in.
No chance.
So Diaz and Jota on the bench, Szoboszlai on the bench, Gravenberch on the bench, Konate on the bench. They're 5 nice subs. You've then got Conor Bradley and Bobby Clark to have
So what was your
couple.
front 3 again?
My front 3 was Salah off the right. I thought Salah really struggled going central. That's my one thing against that.
Yeah.
I thought he, on his own, I think he looks good in it too, when he can go and find a pocket. But on his own there, it just looked a bit like he was getting battered by centre half. Now Burnley in a different picture,
Yeah,
obviously.
it could be. I mean, it could become a 2, but I think Salah's obviously.
I think you've also done Gakpo as a sub for a reason.
I mean, Salah's the least of our worries at the minute, but because he's still posting the numbers, but he's probably not playing at his very, very best. It's a little bit scruffy at times, bouncing off him a little bit. 1 or 2 decisions maybe aren't the decisions that you'd expect from Mo Salah at certain times. But, as I say, the numbers are still there. But I just think, I don't know, Harvey Elliott, I wouldn't mind seeing him playing in that Salah position and letting Salah go through the middle. I don't think it's perfect, but
You're
I'm
going to
almost...
see it in January, lad.
Well, you know what? I'm
playing as a 10.
I'm almost... I think you could do a little bit of that. It's more about...
He might pick the team he's picked against West
Yeah,
Ham.
Diaz
He might
and
pick the front. He might rest Salah, put him on the bench, and he might pick the front 6 he plays against West Ham.
I thought that.
It's more about Diaz and Gakpo aren't convincing me that much at the minute. And listen, I know I give Gakpo a bit of stick before. I do like him as a footballer, but I would like to see. I would like to see Darwin Núñez play left hand side.
I think you're going to get Darwin on left hand side. I think you are going to get Gakpo.
But I think if you do Darwin left hand side and you got Salah through the middle, then you have got that ability where they are kind of working with each other and they do complement each other quite well. They've got a little bit of a relationship going on. So that might be. But I don't think you'll do it. By the way, that's just what I'd do.
I think you might get the West Ham front 6. But I, in my team I've written there, I think that Salah may well start and then Elliott drops into midfield.
I'd play Szoboszlai again. You say I'd ask them to go again for an hour with Jones and Endo, but the manager may have different.
And then Elliott's off the left, and then you make a decision between Gakpo and Salah, which you'd like to be Salah, but I think might be Gakpo, and then he's got Salah as a sub.
Possibly.
He plays Salah a lot this season as a 10 who comes in off the right, doesn't he? Really?
Yeah, and that Elliott can do that.
And Elliott can do, but I kind of wonder whether you could. Yeah, well, he plays Elliott as an out-and-out 10, I think, against.
So, what do you think? You'll be very quiet.
No, I was just listening. I think the team you've put down, I wouldn't be surprised of at all. I think to go with Jones and Elliott again, I think makes a lot of sense in terms of the energy that they're able to bring. I think whoever we put out, we should have enough. I know they get the result against Fulham and fair play to them, but whenever I've watched them this season, I obviously didn't see the Fulham game, but whenever I watched them this season, I just think we should have too much if we got the energy there. So I'd be prioritising, energy as much as I can.
I'm the same.
And your team does that.
Okay, we're going to win.
Yeah.
If we win, we go top.
Well, that's nice.
When do Arsenal don't play till Thursday, do they?
Yeah, we go
top of the league. Christmas Day is like passe. The hipster choice is Boxing Day.
That's the one that everyone wants. Top of the league.
Boxing Day #1.
I do hope so.
They call it top of the league.
Yeah.
Going to go top of the league.
Absolutely.
If you go into Burnley, remember that you've got the opportunity to sing Liverpool top of the league if it comes. So do fill your boots and enjoy that. It is my Christmas #1. It is one of my Desert Island discs. It didn't quite happen against Arsenal. It is a frustration. They were the width of a crossbar away. At the very least, from going 2-1. Listen, again, football matches the way they play out. There's a causality thing. Maybe Arsenal go and make it 2-2. You never know. But it would have been fantastic to have had Liverpool top of the league. But it can still come. Nothing is over. Nothing is finished. Remember Rob Gutmann at the start. Clip him for God's sake. Clip the early Gutmann. It's been a pleasure. Sam Walker down producing on the video and the audio as this one's gone. John Gibbons, Rob Gutmann, Ian Ryan. I've been Neil Atkinson. That's the Anfield Wrap. Have a lovely, lovely Christmas.